following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Bay Area Press Box in the zone. I'm Ralph Tycho. Half the crew is here. I'd like to welcome Michael Duca. How are you, sir?
Good to be with you, Ralph. Readjusting to Pacific Coast time after spending a week in New York.
I am so envious that you get to vacation there on a regular basis. I only get back periodically, and we were talking a little bit about the adjustments between coming back. What did you miss most about California when you're in New York, and what do you look forward to in New York the next time you're going to go there?
Well, what I miss most about California probably is I'm going to, it's kind of a toss-up between the weather and having a car. But, it's not the having a car that I miss, it's the being able to drive that I miss. Nobody should have a car in New York, and way too many people already do.
Well, that's what Uber is for.
Right. Well, in our case, that's what the MTA is for. We are huge users of the subway. We buy the $33 weekly pass and wear it out.
The subway is much improved from when I grew up in New York in the 50s and 60s. The smell is gone. It's just a totally different atmosphere.
Well, there's now a law in New York that the rats have to shower once a week.
Okay. Does that extend to politicians? If that doesn't extend to politicians, I don't want to hear about it.
Well, the politicians are already squeaky clean because they just jumped into the money laundry with their cash.
Yeah, what's going on politically in this country? That's one of the reasons.
And to answer the rest of your question, what I'm looking forward to on my next visit, there are three things that I'm looking forward to. This is the first time I've ever been to New York and did not get to John's of Bleecker Street.
John's Pizza.
So that's on the list. The second thing is that I learned while I was there that there is one natural waterfall on Manhattan Island, and I'm going to go find it.
Whoa. Is it in the Bronx?
No, it's on Manhattan Island.
Whoa. Okay.
It's not a big one. It's about a 25-foot waterfall, and I'm assuming it has to be somewhere up towards Fort Washington. And then the third thing that I want to do is go to the Queens Art Museum. And then I guess there's really a fourth, but we kind of started it on this trip. We need to do a vertical sampling of zoos. We got to the Central Park Zoo this time. We still have to do the Prospect Park Zoo and the Bronx Zoo and the Queens Zoo.
The Bronx Zoo is up by Bedford Park, right near where my grandparents were and where I spent the bulk of my youth.
Well, we finally got to Arthur Avenue to visit the Italian neighborhood there, and we were real close to the Bronx Zoo. I mean, we were just a few blocks away. So I think we could probably find it again.
Wow. I just tear up almost with emotions of that. There's something about the Bronx Zoo that was when I was growing up. It was one of the most special zoos in the country. It just is wonderful. And
we were charmed by the Central Park Zoo. We were really charmed by the Central Park Zoo. It seemed like it's just perfect for small kids. It's big enough to be interesting, and it's small enough to be survivable.
Okay.
And we'll never forget our visit. Well, let me finish one thing. We will never forget our visit to the Central Park Zoo, because while we were in the snow leopard enclosure, my phone literally blew up with the Kobe Bryant news.
Oh, people can't react. You don't even have to be a basketball fan to react, to be in horror, in mourning over this. Just as a human, his story with his daughter and the other passengers on the plane, that I use the expression a chain of grief, and it certainly was. It just put a pall on everything. And it doesn't go away.
I think the best comment I've seen, I saw today on Twitter from Dexter Fowler, the baseball player, and he said, you think that if you have enough money, that if you have the best planes, the best pilots, the best doctors, the best lawyers, the best cars, the best house, that you're kind of bulletproof, and you really aren't.
Yeah.
And it just makes you realize how fleeting it all is. And I thought that was just as well said as it could be.
The thing that made me cry, literally, I was crying. I read on Facebook where Mrs. Munson reached out to Mrs. Bryant, and their interaction, it was a short article, but what can you say? No one could appreciate anything like that but her.
A sisterhood of survivors.
Yes. And it's not like what makes it nice, he wasn't this perfect human being. We're missing this guy because he was perfect. He was imperfect, and we're missing him because he was a human, because of his imperfections. His daughter, the surviving siblings. There's one of the coach's husbands who coaches a woman who died on the plane. 3 kids. He was on CNN last night or the night before. And it was, I don't know if journalism should catch people in their shock, if it does good, but they did it well. I don't remember if it was Anderson or Cuomo, but there's Jerry. I lost it there, but
you were talking about CNN and the basketball coach's husband.
Yes, I lost my train of thought. How to explain it? His grief was unbelievable, and his kids were all of a sudden without a mother. I can't begin to empathize with those people.
The one for whom I feel the most empathy and the most sorrow is Kobe Bryant's youngest, because she will have no memory of her father. The rest of them have some interactions, and anything ranging from moderate to, intense memories because they're older. But the little one is not even a toddler yet, and there's just, there will be no memory of him whatsoever. And
there's an expression when people die, rest in peace, may their memory be a blessing. She doesn't even have the blessing. That's
exactly, and Scott Van Pelt on ESPN, I thought, said it best last night. He's attached, I believe, to their Los Angeles studio now, and he said the entire city of LA is sitting Shiva.
Exactly.
Well,
hi, Michael.
Well,
hi, Ralph.
Hi, Jerry.
I would have thought the sitting Shiva would have come from your mouth, Jerry, but you haven't gotten a chance to talk yet. Where did you get sitting Shiva, Michael Duca?
It's on the web.
Well, Scott Van Pelt said it last night on ESPN, but
another guy.
I'm sad to tell you that I have done it. Not out of religious fealty, but out of support and friendship for others.
And that is a tradition for those that don't know. It's a Jewish tradition of sitting on a hard bench. For the family sits on a hard bench all day in a mourning period. I don't know if it's a week or 2 or 3 days.
It's traditionally 7 days. And to be honest with you, Ralph, the reason that I joined in is that while I'm not the cartoon character, a minion, in order to properly sit Shiva, one needs a minion, is a minimum number of people. And
10
the family didn't have enough observant members to do it, so I pinch hit.
Whoa. And you got a little spirituality to boot, so that's not bad. I'm sorry for your loss, though.
Well, it was a while back, and we've all moved forward. We've had an unveiling, and now we're among the survivors. The living must go forward.
Yeah,
correct.
Another Jewish tradition is that a year later they have an unveiling of the tombstone, and I've been through a number of those. And the older one gets, the more it comes up. I just want to say mortality sucks. How about that? Jerry, you were... Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Oh.
No. You sighed, and I thought you...
I was just listening to
you.
Yeah, every day that we're on this planet is wonderful, and it beats the alternative. And, as someone once said, that life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. So you have to appreciate what you have.
Does it ever?
And the more anxious you get.
Yeah, exactly. But there's not much you can do about it. So you just try and stay healthy and take advantage of all the nice things that you have in life. And
I think the best that I've ever heard that expressed in a succinct moment. You will both remember that the great Eric Davis finished his playing career in San Francisco. And in his last season, he was an infrequent pinch hitter and an infrequent contributor. But every single day, he came to the ballpark with an ear-to-ear grin. He was in the dugout with an ear-to-ear grin. He was positive and joyful, even though his skills had eroded, his opportunities were behind him. And finally, one day I asked him, I said, how can you be so positive every day? And he looked at me a little bit incredulously, and he said, sir, when you've beaten cancer, every day that you wake up on this side of the lawn is the best fucking day of your life.
There you have it. What more can you say?
And it should be even if you didn't beat cancer. The truth,
Yep.
Because I can quote Casey Stengel as saying, some of the people my age are dead, or something like that.
Most of the people, he said, most of the people my age are dead. And you want to know something interesting, Ralph? When we were born, all three of us, when we were born, most of the people our current age were dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, way back then.
And some died before our current age, and that's the one thing. And you can't make rhyme or reason of why. Even if you are, you can't blame it on God. Even if you are religious, it's just the inexplainable. It's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, and again, when I lost a beloved cat, my vet tried to explain it to me as simply as possible, and this is another thing that I live by, even though I'm not a cat. He said cats have no concept of time. They don't have any idea how long they've lived. They only know how well.
Oh.
Yeah.
I remember your loss of your cat, and I can assure you that cat lived well. You love that cat.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Our mutual friend Sherry, I think you adopted a cat from her.
I have two that she had feral cats set up under her front porch. And she brought them in and fostered them, and I adopted two of the three.
Oh, now, I remember your advice in choosing a cat if you could hold it in your hand. Am I right about that?
If you can turn it upside down in your hand, if it'll lay on its back, then it is thoroughly comfortable around people, and it will be a socialized and people-oriented animal. If you can't get it to be comfortable that way, then it's probably always going to have trouble trusting you.
And our mutual friend Sherry is Sherry Davis, speaking of press boxes, who sat in the very press box that you sit in. She was the first female public address announcer in baseball history, Sherry Davis. And you know who she beat out among other people for that job? Me.
You.
I was at Candlestick Park, where we all lined up for the audition, and she won, and I went away with the regrets, because what a job that would have been for Ralphie, and what a job it was for Sherry.
Yeah.
She has great memories. Speaking of cats, her cat is Chili Davis, or was Chili Davis. Her name being Davis, and obviously Chili was one of the people whose name she announced. So everything goes back to the press box. Jerry, talk for a while.
Well, I was
talk for a while.
I wanted to talk to Michael about his trip to New York. He sent me this on Facebook. He sent me this wonderful picture of a corned beef or pastrami sandwich that he and Kelly, or the two sandwiches that they were having at Cass's Deli in New York, and what the experience was like going to that famous deli that was featured in the movie When Harry Met Sally. And of course,
well, there's two signs hanging from the wall at from the ceiling at Katz's Deli. One says, "Send a salami to your boy in the army," and the other one says, "This is the table where Harry met Sally." The first time we went, a couple of years ago, we sat at that table. This time we sat back around the corner where it was a little bit quieter, and I did indeed send Jerry a photograph of the sandwiches along with the caption, "I am having what she's having."
Yeah. I had the great pleasure of meeting Estelle Reiner in 1973. when I was living in L.A. I met Estelle and Carl Reiner, and I have to tell you that was so exciting to meet those people.
I can imagine Carl Reiner.
Go ahead. I was working in Santa Monica, and we had this young fellow from New York who had a child out of wedlock with the daughter of Byron Paul. And Byron Paul was Carl Reiner's business partner. And they were producing the second Dick Van Dyke show that he was doing. And Hope Lang was playing his wife on TV. And they had the young kids decided to get married. And Paul lived at the corner of Sunset Boulevard and the same street that O.J. lived on in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
So, so they had a wonderful backyard wedding, and we went to the wedding, and I got a chance to meet Hope Lang. I got a chance to meet Carl Reiner and Estelle Reiner, and it was coincidentally that they had at that time, either the Los Angeles Times or PBS or someone was doing a retrospective of all the shows that Carl Reiner did with Sid Caesar on Your Show of Shows and the Sid Caesar Hour and the great comedy sketches that they did back in the golden age of television in the early 50s. And as a kid, I watched most of them, and they are still good every time that you see it. And of course, Reiner went on to do the Dick Van Dyke Show and so many other things. He produced so many things. The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Well, I think he was involved in that. And
think of the writing room in that show of shows with Sid Caesar. Some of the people that came out of there, including Woody Allen and the likes. Unbelievable.
Doc Simon wrote them. And Mel Brooks was a writer for them. And
right.
Brooks and Reiner are close friends. I think they have dinner every night. They're both in their 90s. Reiner's about 95, and Brooks is 93.
Jerry?
Yes, sir.
Was Ernie Kovacs part of that group also?
I'm not sure.
He wasn't. I don't think he was. But there was a guy who was ahead of his time. If you ever get
Ernie Kovacs and Lenny Bruce are the two most brilliant comedians, period.
Oh,
right.
Kovacs was brilliant. He died in a car accident in 1962, and it was so sad. It was single car accident. Who knows what happened? But his Nairobi Trio, remember that way back when? Oh my God! The young people have no idea because it's over 50, almost 60 years ago when he died. 58 years
and his
ago.
wife was Abby Lane, who was this tall, leggy, beautiful cigar.
No, it was Edie Adams.
Edie Adams. Okay.
Edie Adams, and she used to advertise for. He did too for Dutch Masters cigars.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I got the name wrong, but I remembered the cigars. She was beautiful, and another example of people dying too young. I mean, what's too young? No matter how old you are, if the limit is 90 or 100 or whatever, it's too young.
Yep.
It's sad.
Always is.
Kobe Bryant. We had a couple of years ago Roy Halladay. You had I remember way back when in the 50s, Harry Aganis, the Greek god of Boston University.
Golden Greek, yeah.
The Golden Greek.
And I was out of the country when this happened, but remind me the name of the golfer who
you mean
Tony Lima?
Payne Stewart? No, Payne Stewart.
Payne Stewart.
Yeah.
Tony Lima, Payne Stewart, yeah. Yeah, I was in Las Vegas when that happened. That was 99, I think, about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago.
Can you imagine if you'd have thought 28 years ago that Magic Johnson would outlive Kobe Bryant?
No,
there's a true statement. I remember vividly exactly where I was when I heard about Magic's announcement, and I thought, wow, I mean, that's a death sentence.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And what's real? It would have been for him, and it still is for an awful lot of folks who can't afford the medication.
Yes, so right. So we've done a lot. A lot has been done to make that more affordable now.
When I was in business, most of the people, and I had several customers or patients that had HIV, and usually they burnt through all their money and they ended up on Medicaid, the Medicaid program in California, and it cost about $2,000 a month for the treatment, which is a lot of money, and they just didn't have the money to pay for it. But so many, unfortunately, I had a couple of them passed away. Once it developed from HIV to AIDS, it was just a matter of time, and it was one of those things. You just try and be positive with the people and hope that the drugs would work. But now they've made so many variations of the retrovirus drugs that they had that they're quite successful in prolonging the life of people who are HIV positive.
Yeah. Well, when I think back of some of the government, some of the people in charge of the government, in this case Ronald Reagan, who resisted research, resisted throwing money into it, that was criminal.
Yeah, it's better to build a nuclear weapon that we don't need than treat people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and one more nuclear weapon could only blow each other up 50,000 times over. We need another weapon instead of talking about peace. What a world, what a world. Give me some upbeat. I'll give you guys some news. I don't know if you know, Michael, that the Giants are thinking about bringing Pablo back, and the thought of Hunter Pence is not just a pipe dream. He may come back to the Giants.
They brought Pablo back. He's already signed to a minor league deal, and they are, according to my sources, they are in conversations with Hunter Pence. Nothing definite yet, but it seems to be further down the road with the Giants than with anyone else that Hunter's talked to. So.
Oh, okay.
And this is like last year. Remember last year, something like 50% of the free agents were still available a week before spring training opened, and there was a flurry of signings.
I have your question. Does anyone know why they let Kevin Pillar go? He had a great season with them last year. Was he too expensive, or what was the problem with Pillar?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would guess that the combination of the fact that he was going to be $10 million minimum, that he was going to be in arbitration, that and that he probably was viewed as being at his best not as good as the potential of Yastrzemski at his best. Yastrzemski's already 28 or 29, and I think they wanted to not block him from having a full year opportunity. And they feel that Yastrzemski can play center field. I don't know what that means for the future of Steven Duggar. I don't know what it means for the future of Elio Ramos, but they feel that Yastrzemski can play center field, at least now.
Okay.
Well, we'll have to see how it goes, And they said that they're in the market for one or two outfielders. I read that on the net today, so I don't know what will transpire. By the way, I saw that the A's signed a pitcher from Japan, Shohei. Can't remember his last name, but he wasn't a great pitcher. But he's I guess they're doing their modus operandi, finding a low value a person that won't cost them very much money that might be under the radar.
Can I throw a name at you guys?
Industrial league. Okay, go ahead. I was going to fill you in a little bit on the pitcher.
Please do.
He pitched in an industrial league in Japan. He had been passed over in the Japanese draft twice, which is why he was eligible to be signed as a free agent without paying a posting fee. And that's kind of, in more ways than two, that's the A's MO, because you are definitely looking at a low price acquisition when you're looking at somebody who doesn't require the posting fee. It's a very minimal risk that the A's undertook here, and you're right. It's
let's explain that. That's non-refundable. Am I correct?
That is correct.
You pay to negotiate, and if you don't sign them, there's no return whatsoever.
Yeah, the best way to think of it is it's like an option on a house. You are purchasing the exclusive right to deal with someone for a set period of time. And his name is Shuei Tomioka.
There you go. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Good knowledge, Michael. By the way, it's my understanding that the environmental impact report on the A's stadium is due tomorrow. They're supposed to get it tomorrow, the findings of the EIR. So we'll have a better fix on what's going on with the stadium.
Well,
now if
we're only 3 years away then from breaking ground.
Well, that's 3 years from breaking ground. They also have the report that about the number of cars that would be piling into the area for a game.
Yeah, that's part of the EIR.
And the difficulties that they have with the train tracks, and how you're going to get people over from the parking lots. They might have to build an overpass to get to the ballpark, so that they can get over without disturbing the
Why
trains.
would they set themselves up for all those problems when they have the infrastructure, they have BART right there at the present location, it's right off the freeway, and you could have had a shopping center around there, and which they're planning on doing anyway. I just don't understand their choice. Not that it wouldn't be beautiful.
Manfred doesn't like the neighborhood. He doesn't like the neighborhood.
I think that's as gentle and as succinctly as it can be said. It's functional as hell, Ralph, but it ain't sexy. And I think the most interesting thought that I have heard so far on making the Howard Street terminal a viable site was that somebody asked if it would be possible to move the 12th Street BART station to 8th Street. 8th Street is where the tracks turn, and 8th Street is the last place in the East Bay where all of the tracks are together. So it could, an 8th Street station would make a lot of sense because it would be a focal point for everything, but unfortunately you'd probably have to put it in multiple levels, and I can only imagine how long it would take to excavate and build that. I mean, you remember all of the nonsense that they went through just to try and figure out where to locate the Chinatown station in San Francisco for that subway. But it was an interesting idea because it would then put a BART station within 6 blocks of the ballpark, I believe.
Yeah, well, 6 blocks is okay, but right now it's over a mile from West Oakland and a mile from Lake Merritt and over a mile from 12th Street.
Right, and what they were looking at was maybe building another station at the junction point.
Yeah.
Where all those lines meet.
And who's
it wouldn't be it wouldn't be replacing 12th Street. It would be in addition to 12th Street.
Well, it probably would, because you're not going to put BART stations 4 blocks apart. The train is 2 blocks long.
Oh, okay, but you could have some trains that stop there and some trains that don't. In other words,
possible.
You wouldn't.
That's certainly possible. I'm thinking of the Paris subway, where you just pass through stations that simply aren't there anymore. They just basically board them up trackside, and it looks like there's never been a station there, but it's there. It's just closed.
Yeah, it's a real problem. It's a real problem as to what to do with all the cars and the Amtrak tracks, and it's a mess over there.
Well, the people who think that they understand urban planning have all come out and said, how can there be a problem? We had 35,000 people at FanFest, and there was no traffic issues at all. Of course, not all of them were there at the start, as they would be for a baseball game, and not all of them left at the end, as they would for a baseball game.
Yeah, it was different. So what we
did you attend that FanFest, Jerry?
Unfortunately, I did not. I had a prior commitment with my financial advisor that day. They had a seminar. We had a gentleman on cybersecurity talk to us and where the economy is going, and people from the bond markets, and they said.
My financial advisor is the payday loan thing at the mall.
Yeah, well, so, my financial advisor told me 18 months ago, whatever you do, don't buy Tesla at $300 a share.
Yeah, exactly. It's up to $500. So, what are they?
Check again. It was up $59 today.
Wow. I don't know. I know the market was down. I don't know what happened for the rest of the day. The coronavirus is scaring the bejesus out of everybody.
As well it ought.
We talked about your car when you got it, Michael. Are you as happy with it as it's been about a year, if I'm not mistaken.
It's actually going to be 2 years in June, and it is disappointing, Ralph. It is disappointing that I haven't been able to pay for a tune-up, that I haven't been able to pay for a brake job, that I haven't had my radiator flushed, that I haven't had to change my transmission fluid, that all the maintenance I have had to do on the car. I mean, the only thing I've had to do is replace windshield wipers. Gee.
Well, the main drawback, though, is I don't know if you saw it on the news at holiday time, is people traveling between L.A. and San Francisco with the Teslas and who needed a recharge. It took them several hours to get it recharged. They don't have enough charging stations to take care of the cars on the road now, traveling up Highway 5 or 101 or wherever you're going to L.A. And so that's disconcerting at the moment.
It's like anything else, Jerry. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. If you've already made the philosophical move from a gasoline-powered vehicle to an electric vehicle, you need to make the philosophical move to understanding how electric vehicles recharge. A Tesla will go from empty to 70% charged in about 30 minutes at the superchargers. And at the third generation superchargers, it'll do it in about 20 minutes. But after that, the battery starts to heat up, and so the charger understands that and slows down. And to go from 70% to 80%, which is what they recommend you stop at, takes an additional 35 minutes. So if people would understand that you charge until the charging slows down, and then get in the car and go and stop at another charger and do the same thing, it takes less time than filling it all the way to the top, and you cycle people through the chargers much faster.
My other question is that since you're not paying any gasoline taxes that the people with piston-driven cars are doing now, and part of that tax goes for maintenance of the road, would you suspect that at some point in time that there's going to be a surcharge on your registration fee to pay for maintenance of the road?
I fear that there will be. There probably should be some. It should not be as much as people think for a couple of reasons. One of them being that electric vehicles, because they do not emit pollutants, don't contribute to acid rain and don't contribute to the deterioration of the roadway in the same way that other vehicles do. But one of the issues that you have here is, people want us to put a surcharge on our registration fee. You would be stunned to know what my registration fees are for that car, Jerry. I pay almost $850 a year to put a license plate on the car.
Wow. Really?
There's already surcharges. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Excuse my ignorance. Is there a charge when you charge your car? Is that free or at the stations?
If you bought a Model S or a Model X, the first two that came out, the $90,000 ones, they came with lifetime free supercharging. I pay for it, but it is, Ralph, it's so much cheaper than gas, it's unbelievable. It costs me, at a supercharger, it costs me about $16 to put 300 miles worth of electricity in the battery.
Okay.
At home,
$50 for a car, gasoline car.
Yep. And at home, it costs me probably less than half that. If the power that I put in at home, which comes from my own solar, I calculate out at about 4 cents a mile.
Well, very reasonable. Very reasonable.
Right. Yeah, well, when you combine it with almost no maintenance cost, yes.
Okay.
Well,
hey,
I don't have any maintenance costs on my car for 4 years, because the BMW takes care of everything for 4 years. After that, it gets costly, and that was one of the problems that I had with my other car. The car had a value of about $7,000, and they said I needed $8,000 worth of repairs. So,
I think the most shocking thing I've ever heard about a BMW, my neighbor across the street had a 720 series, and the battery just gave out, just wore out.
Yeah.
The batteries in a BMW are computer-based, and it was going to cost him $900 to replace the battery.
Oh, unbelievable.
Whew. Oh, wow.
That's
why it takes a special battery, and the battery has to communicate with the car's computer, and the computer has to be reset and calibrated to the battery.
Wow.
So
you're probably.
Oof.
Yeah. Well, that's why so many of those high-end cars are leased. People keep it from 3 years, 4 years. They turn it back in before it gets too expensive to do the repairs. It's easier to do it that way.
Well, we're about to the end of the road here, and we haven't said anything. Jerry, I have to ask you the most burning football question in my mind. Who won the Pro Bowl? Who won the Pro Bowl?
I have no idea. I didn't watch the game.
Okay.
That is the least important game in the NFL. Is just
well, let me ask you guys, who is Joe Montana rooting for in the Super Bowl?
Oh, I think I answered that question, Ralph.
You
got to
did.
root for the team that has red.
He won, yeah.
Okay.
He won 4 rings with the Niners. And he was
I know, but his leaving was so controversial, what with Young and what have you, that I just wonder. And he did have good years in Kansas City, not superstar years, but
he also had a wicked concussion playing for Kansas City. I think it was a game against Buffalo, and his head hit the concrete on one of these AstroTurf surfaces, and he didn't know who he was for 2 weeks.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how severe the concussion was. Yeah.
So maybe I could answer my own question. He's probably rooting for the 49ers.
Because he may not remember he was with Kansas City.
Yeah, right.
All right, guys. I hope it's a good Super Bowl, and we'll be back.
Michael, who are you predicting? Who do you like?
You know, the Chiefs are a 1-point favorite, and I would say that might be 1 point too many. This is as close to a toss-up as it depends on when you ask me. I truly believe that the Chiefs have too much speed on offense for the 49ers defense. On the other hand, the two teams' offenses are the fastest 2 offenses in the NFL, and the 49ers are less than 1% slower than the Chiefs, and I know the 49ers have too much speed for the Chiefs' defense. So,
now 49ers have their ground game going, that they can try and have good ball control, that they can blunt the Kansas City offense. I know Kansas City can manufacture points in a hurry. I saw that.
Well, my analyses are as follows. First of all, Colin Kaepernick got shut down by a great defense in the Super Bowl. Then Lamar Jackson got shut down by a great defense in the playoffs this year. So mobile quarterbacks against elite defenses tend to get exposed because while they like to throw on the run, they like to throw on the run when it's planned and not when they're flushed. Right. So that, I think, is issue number 1. Issue number 2, if the 49ers can get a lead and play from ahead, ball control matters hugely. But if they have to catch up, they're not a team that's built very well to catch up. And the third thing that I will tell you is that this is the 6th time in 54 Super Bowls that the best offense in the league has played the best defense in the league. In the previous 5 matchups, the best defense won them all.
Oh, good knowledge. Wow, didn't know that. Yeah, and the Niners had great defenses back in the days when they won their 5 Super Bowls.
Well, not only that, the Niners have always played ball control offense. Because Bill Walsh was so innovative with the passing game, you didn't think of it that way, but it wasn't the catch that won their first Super Bowl. It was Lenville Elliott after the catch.
Right.
It was controlling the ball for the last 6 minutes after that touchdown.
Yeah, and of course at the end, Dan Bunz's great stop against.
Well, that was in the Super Bowl itself. I'm talking about the Cowboys game. I'm talking about the game. Everybody thinks the catch just ended that game. It didn't. The game continued for another 6 minutes, and the reason that the Niners wound up winning was that Lenville Elliott ran out the clock on the Cowboys.
Right. Yeah, that ball control. When you're ahead, ball control is great. I'm looking forward to it. I think the Niners have the capability to chase Mahomes out of the pocket a lot. Yeah,
it's going to be very interesting because I think of all the games that he's played this year, that this will be the single most motivated game for D. Ford.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. Nothing like revenge.
Well, and in particular, you have to remember that the Chiefs last year lost in overtime in the AFC Championship game to Tom Brady and the Patriots, but that they did so because D. Ford was lined up off sides when Brady was intercepted late in the game that would have sealed the game and sent the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. And the next thing we heard about D. Ford, he got traded. So, right. I think even though Andy Reid has said all the right things about we don't blame D. Ford and we lost that game on our own and we lost that game in other ways, I think D. Ford is probably entering this game with the notion that he is going to try and redeem himself.
Yeah. Oh, I would think so. He's got a lot of motivation.
And so you put that motivation on one side of the center and you put Nick Bosa on the other side of the center and they say, meet you at the quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we'll see what Saleh comes up with on his defensive scheme on Sunday. Should be a good game. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I don't even want to predict the score. Probably something like 31-28, maybe something in that range.
Might be something like that. The over-under is surprisingly low. It's in the 40s.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that is low.
Yeah, well, I just remember, I was working for the bank in Las Vegas that had all the casino accounts, which meant that I talked to a lot of the odds makers and line makers for Super Bowl 16, the 49ers' first Super Bowl, and to a man they all said, 49ers are not going to win this game, but if you absolutely positively say that you have to find a way to bet on them, you have to bet the under, because the only way they can win is if the score is low. And I don't know if you all remember, but the over-under for Super Bowl 16 was 47.5 points, and the final score was 26-21 San Francisco.
So you bet the under, you would have won 47.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. It should be interesting. I'm looking forward to the game. I of course, I'm rooting for the Niners, and hope they
who have a better record against the spread than the Chiefs do this year.
Yeah.
So that's another reason not to be too frightened by that 1 point. Remember, they set the point spread where they have to attract even money on both sides, and that's why you'll get a different spread in Las Vegas than you will in New Jersey. Because East Coast money is going to go towards Eastern teams more than Western teams, and West Coast money is the other way around.
Okay.
May I ask you guys, were you surprised that Colin Kaepernick never did get signed by anyone?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he was better than a lot of the backup quarterbacks that were signed.
He's better than some of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
I mean,
a
Brian
number
Hoyer
of the starting.
Would you rather have Brian Hoyer as a backup or Colin Kaepernick as a backup?
I'd rather have Colin Kaepernick as the starter,
than
some of the guys that are out there toiling in this league. There's, I don't know. I mean, it's beyond me that Colin Kaepernick can't get an NFL job, and guys like Cade McNown have been around for 17 years. What?
Yeah, remember he had that tryout, and then something happened that the NFL put conditions on it that he couldn't agree to, and he did the tryout at a different location, and they said no.
Yeah, well, the NFL wanted to bar the media. They didn't want the media to see the tryout, and he knew immediately that meant that they would spin the outcome.
Yeah, exactly. And he did get a settlement with the NFL, but who knows? I'm sure he's
got the great shoe. He's got the great shoe deal going with Nike.
Yeah, and he's put his money where his mouth is. He's pledged tons of money to self-generating charities in minority communities, and he's backed it all up with actually coming through with the money, unlike some charities that we've heard of in the past. So, I don't know. Yeah. I think he got himself a seriously raw deal. I think he's not all that unhappy about it because he stood up for what he believed in. And at the end of the day, he will still have a fully functioning brain. He never took any bad hits. And he's got the same amount of notoriety that I think he would have had he played. And he's doing good things for society. So,
well, he's one guy that has the courage of it. He's one guy that has the courage of his convictions, which is totally unlike 53 people in the U.S. Senate who knows that a certain person did wrong things, and when they acquit him in the next few days, they're going to become co-conspirators.
Jerry, they have the courage of no conviction.
Exactly, courage of no conviction. They're co-conspirators, and they're involved in the cover-up. And there are a couple people who said that they would vote to have witnesses and documents, and we'll see when the vote comes. I think today is the last day of the questions and answers, and tomorrow they'll be put to the vote. Do they want to bring in witnesses and documents, and we will see which Republican senators will stand up and do the right thing and which ones won't.
Well, the good news is
you don't even have to vote to. You don't have to vote to convict the guy. You just have to have the decency to want to put all the evidence out there and make it a fair trial. And then go from there. Let the chips fall, but where they may. But to protect this guy,
well, here's how I always take a sideways look at these things, and just close your eyes for a minute and imagine sitting in a federal prison watching these proceedings on TV. Imagine El Chapo thinking, now why didn't I think of not having witnesses?
Yeah, right.
Where was Dershowitz for me?
Well, sadly, he has lived past his shelf life. His pull date was a while ago, and he has become Dershowitless.
Exactly. Some of his statements yesterday were just unbelievable. But anyway, the defense comes up, said that the Democrats, when the House inquiry went on, they didn't call. What was it? The president couldn't cross-examine the witnesses. But that's not how it goes in a grand jury's proceedings. The witnesses come in, there are no lawyers, they testify, and then they go home. And
not only that. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing is hugely amazing. I listened to one question yesterday where one of the senators asked the president's defense team, can you please name one witness or one document that the White House has provided to this inquiry? And the response by Jay Sekulow, of course, did not speak to the question at all. But what he said was, in essence, that the people who write the law about the law couldn't write a subpoena correctly. He said all the subpoenas were flawed.
Yeah, exactly. That's nonsense.
Everyone. As if that's not a smokescreen. Answer the question, what is Bolton saying? Don't you want to hear? I can't imagine these people not being curious why would we want to defend someone if he's absolutely guilty? Is it worth it?
Well, Ralph, I'm going to give you a possible reason. It is only possible. I am not saying it is so. I am not a conspiracy theory guy at all. I don't believe in them. I don't like them. However, it is plausible to me, highly plausible, that the Russians didn't only hack the Democratic National Committee. If you're going to do that, and if you're going to do that for leverage, wouldn't you want leverage against both sides?
That's a good point. They had, I don't know, did you have a chance to read any of the Mueller report? The first part was so technical about what the GRU was doing in their hacking. It was, a lot of it was redacted, and a lot of it was beyond what I would had any knowledge of. But it was very, very extensive as what they were doing. And you're absolutely right. Why would they do just one side?
Okay. I have a question. Can it say he's acquitted? Can they vote? Can the House come back and impeach him on other things?
Yes, there's no double indemnity. There's no double indemnity. He can be charged again.
Yes, because these are not criminal proceedings. Therefore, regardless of what the president's lawyers want you to think, that there were no crimes committed. Well, first of all, maybe there weren't. Now they're saying, well, maybe there were crimes, but they didn't specify them in their indictment document. Therefore, they can't prosecute them. Well, they can come back and prosecute them later. I mean, everybody was wondering, why did Nancy Pelosi hold the articles of impeachment for so long? Because she knew that Bolton had submitted his manuscript for the mandatory 30-day review by the National Security Council. That's why. She knew it would come out at some point. And she knew that, and here's the beauty of that. One manuscript was submitted to the NSC. NBC reported yesterday, and it may be true and it may not, but NBC reported yesterday that within a few hours there were a dozen copies being circulated through that area alone. Meanwhile, the copy that was sent to the White House, nobody read. Now, I will grant you they were a little busy, but, nobody read.
Yeah, well, someone has to clear it. Don't they have to clear it to make sure that there's no classified information being revealed?
Yes, so that's exactly what the NSC said yesterday. They said that the letter that they actually sent, everybody's reporting this as the White House is trying to block publication of the book. They're actually not. I mean, maybe the White House is, but they're not going to have any success if they try. But the NSC has said that they have identified several passages and or portions of the book that they feel qualify as top secret and that cannot be safely revealed as written, and they said that they want to work with the editors and the author to allow him to tell his story as rapidly as possible. Now, of course you're going to say that, but nonetheless, this was not a blanket denial. This is not a blanket, oh no, we're classifying your book. They can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's the truth is going to come out at some point in time. So hopefully it will come out before the election, but they're going to try and stonewall it and bury it before. They don't want anything coming out. Why they want this guy reelected is beyond me. But
again, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. They all, and I don't mean Republicans, I mean everyone in Washington, they all have secrets they don't want out.
Oh yeah.
And when you're dealing with an entity as ruthless as Putin, you don't really want to give him the opportunity to tell your story for you.
That's for sure. Well, the other thing is they're terrified of what Trump will do to them in the primaries, and guys like Tillis, who's vulnerable, Cory Gardner in Colorado, McSally in Nevada, Collins in Maine. They're all vulnerable.
Yeah, McSally's in Arizona, but yes. Yeah, what I think both of you guys saw my idea last week, which is, there's 8.3 million Democrats in California alone, and we have no Senate election. There's 14 other states like that. If all the registered Democrats were to give $10 apiece to the 23 Democratic candidates who wind up running in November against Republican incumbents, you'd have over $3 billion to spend. You'd have almost $2 billion just from California. You would have a stunning amount of money, something in the neighborhood of $200 million to defeat Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. That's over $1,000 per voter.
That'd be wonderful. That would be wonderful. But
let me ask you this. If 75% of the people polled by CNN want to see a trial with witnesses and documentation, how are these 75% going to respond on election day to Republican senators who refuse to even look at the documentation? I think the people are going to stand up.
I know how we hope. I think they will too, but the other thing that I heard the other day that I thought made a lot of sense was the reason that we're in this predicament is that 38 million people who were registered to vote didn't in 2016. So if you know somebody who didn't vote last time, take them to the polls with you. Sit down with them and fill out the absentee ballot with them. Get the votes in. If the majority of people vote in this country, they will vote for a different outcome than the one we got last time.
Well, keep in mind the Democrats got 4 candidates that are over 70 years old. Elizabeth Warren, I think, is the youngest at 70. Bloomberg, Sanders, and Biden are in their mid-70s to late 70s. And I think in the last election, a lot of the black vote did not turn out. And I think it would be imperative for them to have a running mate that's either a woman or a black woman like Kamala Harris. So she'll fit both categories. And so they have someone that would be a rising star in the Democratic Party, a Cory Booker or a Kamala Harris.
The interesting thing about identity politics is that black voters don't like the black candidates as much as they like Joe Biden.
Yeah, well,
which is kind of surprising, but for me, I think that the election will hinge just as 2008 and 2012 did. I think the election will hinge on the percentage of voters between the ages of 18 and 30 who turn out, because
that would be nice.
They are almost unanimous.
That would be
nice. That's where Bernie comes in. He's got control of that, and he asserts control of that. He's not the only person that has his idea. And Ralph, you and I have talked about this before. My fundamental problem with Bernie is not with his ideas, and it is not with his policies. It's with his refusal to support the rest of the Democratic ticket. If you think that electing Bernie and losing the Senate is going to get you anywhere, dream on. Well,
if you want to be the Democratic nominee, then join the party, for Christ's sake.
That would be nice.
That would be nice. I'm wondering how big a role of how big his not anti-Semitism, but anti-Zionism plays with the Democratic National Committee. I wonder if...
I hate to say this, especially with the knowledge of who I have at the other end of the line here, but I just think that you cannot even consider Israel when you are trying to select someone for their foreign policy, because Israel is not a single thing. Israel under Netanyahu is so different from Israel under Shimon Peres that you can't begin to have a coherent thought about a country or about a foreign policy. You have to adjust it for who the Israelis have put in charge, and they seem to consistently be putting in place somebody who is not acting in their self-interest. So, I mean, one of you guys going to have to explain to me how annexing the Jordan Valley and half of the West Bank is any different than annexing Crimea. Because I sure as hell don't know.
There isn't. And it was strictly, what they came up with yesterday was strictly what Netanyahu wanted. And
on the day that he was indicted. On the very day that he was indicted.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's like Trump making the call to Ukraine the day after the Mueller conversation or documents went down.
Oh, exactly.
It's
exactly.
Just a sense it's a sense of entitlement that's sickening. Like I'm above the law.
Exactly.
Well, I have a slightly more scatological way of putting it, Ralph. Same cesspool, different turds.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that Trump. And
the biggest ones float to the top.
Trump likes guys like Erdogan. He likes guys like Netanyahu, guys like Putin, and he was probably just doing what Netanyahu told him to do.
Yeah, democracy is messy. I mean, it is absolutely irretrievably true that a dictatorship can accomplish a significantly larger number of things. If you look at the infrastructure that's been built in China in the last 20 years, it would take probably 100 years to do that in the United States, just because you'd have issues of local control and non-centralized planning and changing administrations and changing philosophies and waffling people and all of that stuff. So yeah, the dictatorships are more efficient, but are they more effective?
Yeah.
We don't know. It's hard to say,
our economy. To the question. That's a very good question.
We don't know.
So on that note, I have to go to a Cal basketball game, so I'm going to sign off. The two of you can continue to chat as long as you need to.
Yeah, we've done it. We've done it. Jerry, is there anything?
What?
Pardon?
I got to do the Warrior game. Thank God I'm taking it on TV.
All right. Enjoy your chores, gentlemen. You're in the candy store of life. It's wonderful. Thank you for a very informative, fun, and cathartic show, because we got to talk about Kobe, and that feels good doing it. God bless.
Started with Kobe and ended with Bernie, and in between we covered just about everything there was. So, the one thing we never did do, Ralph, was we didn't stay in our lane.
Just one more thing before we leave. 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
The camps open in Phoenix, and then Grapefruit League opens. Pitchers and catchers report in about 2 weeks. Baseball is almost back.
That's right. I report in about 3.
Do we ever need it?
Yep.
Okay, gentlemen.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I will just say this in closing: the Astros did the right thing finally. I think Dusty's going to be able to turn that around.
They got a good guy.
Yeah. I would love that to be the cap on his career that puts him into the Hall of Fame. Everybody. No one I know doesn't root for him. Everybody loves Dusty, and
with
if
good
for
reason.
No other reason. Yeah, if for no other reason, he was really screwed over by Washington when they let him go. They left him hanging for a week or so without knowing. You don't do that to a gentleman. You don't do that to a human being. So
No, and as I've told people for the 25 years that I've known him, I'm not the sort that would ever get into an alley fight, but if I did, he's the one man I'd want at my back.
Did you see his press conference today? In the presser, he said he was rooting for the Astros to beat the Nats, and I don't think anyone in the room picked up on it.
Well, Are you ready for this? You know, as he said, I got a lot of things to do. I got to prune my grapes. I got to make sure my dogs don't have any fleas. I got to visit my grandkids, and I got to pack for 7 months. I got to go. And where's he going to go? He's going to go to a complex that is shared with the Washington Nationals. How sweet do you think that is?
Baseball's a funny game. That's what Joe Garagiola said. All right, guys. Thank you again. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The show is Bay Area Press Box. The absolute wonderful co-hosts are Michael Duca and Jerry Feitelberg. Thank you, my friends. Next stop will be Nations. Be well.
I'll
Thank
bring
you
an
for
appetite.
listening, everybody. All right. Adios, everybody.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.